Our next distinguished keynote speaker, Mr. Kambiz, Hooshmand, is going to share his valuable view on age of context computing. Kambiz is the chairman of the board at Infinera and sits on the board of Power One, a leading provider of power and alternative energy solutions. Kambiz has spent more than 25 years building communication systems and solutions for wireless and wireline infrastructures. Most recently, Kambiz was the president and CEO of Applied Micro, where he transformed the company into the leading provider of semiconductor solutions for optical transport networks. Previously, Kambiz held a number of senior executive positions at Cisco Systems, including Group Vice President and General Manager responsible for core routing. He holds a Master of Science degree in Engineering Management from Stanford University. Please join me to welcome Mr. Kambiz Hooshmand.
Okay, good afternoon, and thanks for being here. As a testament to how much I love each and every one of you, I will tell you that I'm a soccer fanatic, or as I like to refer to it, a football fanatic. I actually came back from Brazil on Tuesday, and thankfully was not a participant in the thrashing of Brazil, which is one of my favorite teams. And today, as you know, Brazil is playing, so do me a favor and do not mention the score, because I'm going to go home and watch it after this. And of course, it'll be a major event tomorrow morning as well. So this afternoon, for the next half hour, we're going to talk about context computing and what that means in terms of innovation, what that means in terms of opportunity to startups, to companies, and to the human experience. We have gone through transitions like this every so often. And I will talk about those transitions, these transitions from one computing era to another computing era, and how these transitions have absolutely massive influence on the rate of innovation and on the rate of opportunities generated. When the mobile computing era began in 2007, we were given a computer in the palm of our hands, and we were allowed to carry this computer with us all the time and every way. Because it was small enough, because it was useful enough, we chose to carry it with us all the time and every way. And because of GPS, we could approximately locate someone. We were able to create the age of mobile, social, local. This device connected us to each other, connected us to the cloud, and in the process generated a range of human experiences that was previously not possible. Hence, the mobile computing era began, and with it came massive opportunities, massive changes. Think about it. The age of mobile computing began only in 2007. So it's approximately 7 years old. And think about how much the world has changed in just the past 7 years because of this innovation. The app community, the app economy, the ability to do all the things that my colleague Jack just talked about is the result of the mobile computing era. Things got very, very interesting as we transitioned from the internet and desktop internet to the mobile internet. Things are about to get a lot more interesting one more time. We are about to be able to browse the physical world and be able to integrate and interact with the physical world in real time. Apple just introduced a new device, really a new protocol, a low Bluetooth energy device called iBeacon. It was a very unassuming presentation, very much unlike Apple actually, that was made in June of last year around the iBeacon. The iBeacon gives you the capability to locate someone within 4 inches. So whereas with GPS, we could locate someone approximately to within this building, we can now locate you in that seat. This will bring a whole new set of experiences. It's early days, but we are transitioning from the age of mobile computing to the age of context computing. My talk is by design at a much higher level, an abstract level, even though this is a device community. But understand that each of these computing generations bring large, massive opportunities for innovation, both at the device level, at the network level, at the software level, and at the human experience level. We can now interact through context with the physical world around us. And as a result of this context, be able to create human experiences that were previously not possible. And I will give you some examples of that in my conversation today. This change from mobile computing to context computing will bring vast new possibilities. I will also show you that each new technology generation goes through trials and tribulations, goes through the early baby steps, goes through the problems that it always does. If you think about it, the world did not begin with the iPhone. There were lots of attempts prior to that to generate the mobile computing era. In fact, the mobile computing era was in innovation, was in evolution throughout the 1990s and a good part of the 2000s, until in 2007 the perfect device showed up that created the mobile computing era. We are early in the generation, in the creation of the context computing era. These things are very hard to predict, for me or for anyone, exactly what the tipping point is. We think at our Kambiz labs that the tipping point is the introduction of the iBeacon, but we may be wrong. But there is no doubt in my mind that the context computing era has either already arrived or will arrive soon as a result of a great innovation done by someone in this audience or someone somewhere in the world. So let me give you some examples of how context computing will change the human experience. Let's look at retail. Let's just go through one example. Let's assume that you have a friend called Peter. Peter has a birthday coming up next week, and in the back of your mind, you're trying to search for a birthday party or some event gift for this person, for Peter. The cloud knows the context of Peter actually better than you do. Now, that sounds strange, almost sounds like a privacy invasion, but the cloud knows that Peter has searched, has looked for a watch. Not necessarily a wearable watch, maybe just one of the traditional watches. He's interested in an Omega watch. He likes Omega watches. The cloud knows that information. The app on your phone also knows that Peter is a very close friend of yours and that his birthday party is coming up soon. You actually don't remember, at least I don't remember. I'm the ultimate absent-minded person, my wife always tells me. So I don't remember his birthday party, but I'm walking through Macy's. The app wakes up, having browsed the physical world at Macy's, using these beacon devices, wakes up and sends me a notification that the Omega watch is available in the store, that Peter is interested in Omega, and that it is on sale. Would you be interested in taking a look at it? This is good for me, it's good for Peter, and it's good for Macy's. It's a wonderful world. That's just one example. Now let's look at stadium examples. I just came from going through lots of stadiums. Believe me, especially in Brazil, it wasn't a very pleasant experience. It takes a long time, you have to wait in queue. Then finally you get to your seat in the heat of Brazil. In my case, in Rio and Sao Paulo, you're sitting down and you go, oh shit, I have to go get water now because I'm really thirsty. I'm going to miss half of the game. My son, my 15-year-old, who fortunately, from my perspective, as opposed to my wife's perspective, is also a soccer fanatic, was with me, and he says, "Dad, I'm hungry." And the game has already started, and the line is huge. Imagine a different experience. Imagine that my ticket, my entry to the stadium, is not a piece of paper. It's in fact embedded into my phone. And I walk through the stadium, and my phone, my smart app, is able to browse the stadium and say, "Kambiz, your seat is actually gate number 20. Let me walk you there, and let me have you sit at your seat." And, by the way, when I'm ready to order, I actually order from my seat, and the water and the food arrives, and I don't have to miss Germans scoring against the French, which is the game I was watching. By the way, you may think that I'm talking about a future event, that this is all in the future, that 2020, 2025 this may happen. But actually, Major League Baseball here in the US has exactly implemented the app that I just talked about with the use of iBeacons. So this isn't quite the future, it's actually already here. Let's talk about another example, hospitality example. Most of us travel a lot, and traveling can be, especially business traveling, can be very tiring. You arrive at an airport late, and you get into a taxi, and you want to go into your hotel. You do not want to wait at the check-in, at the registration desk. Imagine that your app knows this, knows your context, and it browses the hotel and understands this is the Hyatt Hotel to which you have a registration, and checks you in and actually gives you a digital key, and you walk up to your room without ever speaking to anybody. This experience is also possible. Experience a different way of going to museums, of walking through Louvre in France and actually knowing the history of every item as your phone browses the physical world and tells you what is there, what is the historical significance of it, and what you're watching, and perhaps other people that have left markers in that particular museum before you, friends of yours, people that are experts have left markers on that particular item that you're watching. Imagine a smart conference room. How many times has it happened, especially with lawyers? Any lawyers in the room before I offend them? Good. They're all engineers. How many times have you walked into a lawyer's office, and of course their rates are $800 an hour. I don't know what justifies that rate, but their rates are that high. And then they bring in 2 associates, each of which at $400 an hour, so it's really $1,600 an hour. You walk into the conference room, and the lawyers take about 20 minutes to set up the conference room with the document you're about to review. Maybe it's a patent document. They take time to get going. Imagine a smart conference room where everybody gets in the room, and your device browses the room, and the devices in the room, the TV, the phone, browse you and react to the fact that this is the meeting in which you're going to review a particular patent document. The patent document pops up on the television, and there's also a display on your phone that shows all of the LinkedIn pages of everybody in the room. So if there's 20 people in the room, it doesn't take 35 minutes to do introductions. Again, it may seem like I'm talking about the distant future where all of this is possible, but there's actually a number of startups that are doing exactly the application that I talked about. Now, why couldn't this be done before in the mobile computing era? One, because context computing wasn't understood and wasn't as integrated as it's going to be in the near future. 2, because with GPS, I could not locate you just in this conference room. It could be that you're in this conference room or the one next to it or the one next to it. So the accuracy information wasn't there before. The point of all of these examples is not the particular examples. The point of all of these examples is that there are hundreds or thousands of examples of human experiences that will be transformed by context computing. And that the age of context computing brings a massive amount of opportunity. The first area of the opportunity that you can think of, that I can think of, is actually these apps that I just talked about, these transformations of the human experience. But there are many, many other areas in which context computing will bring opportunity for innovation and opportunity for generation of significant value. So before we go any further, let's take a lesson from history. That's always useful. We humans have been in the process of digitizing our experiences and digitizing our information for the better part of 50 years. The digitization of the human experience really began in the 1950s with the invention of computing engines. We know today, of course, that the first set of computers, the mainframes, were about the size of this podium here, and they were not very mobile at all. You couldn't possibly drag that with you. But that process has changed. That computing engine has changed to the point that we all carry today the equivalent of one or two of those mainframe computers in the palm of our hands, in our pockets, and soon in wearable devices. This process has all happened because computing has been in innovation, in constant innovation for 5 decades. Many of you here have contributed significantly, being from the chip industry, to that computing engine improving every 18 months, according to Moore's law. That means once a decade, we get to go 100 times faster, 100 times more powerful than before. And that means that in each era, there has been 10 to 1,000 times more massive digitization of the information of the human experience. And therefore, the opportunity that has come with that has been each time larger and larger. And that's why I think context computing represents yet one more order, perhaps 2 more orders of magnitude of opportunity. It's the golden age to do startups and to innovate. And I strongly suggest that you experience that firsthand in a startup. Each computing era creates its own winners and leaves behind the companies from the prior era that fail to innovate, that fail to adopt and adapt to this new technology. Again, let's take a lesson from history. The mainframe era began in the 1960s. We know now who the winners of that era were. The IBMs, the NCRs, the Control Datas, the Honeywells. In those days, the mainframe, as I mentioned before, was the size of this room, this podium. And I don't know how many people here might know this. For the longest time, for about 15 years, the mainframe did not actually have an operating system. It actually required someone to walk up with a stack of cards and do a batch job, and then a day later, the administrator who stood in front of that computer who actually scheduled your job, so there was no scheduler, which is one of the things that an operating system does, the guy who scheduled your job, who actually executed your job, the next day would tell you, hey, your program worked, or it didn't work. I'm old enough, as you can tell from my white hair, that I actually lived through part of that era in my college, where I walked with a stack of cards to a computer, and I handed it to a person, and a day later I was told, does it work or not? So enjoy your current programming languages, which give you instant feedback. Then some very smart people came and said, let's move the computing device closer to the application. Instead of the application having to walk up to this guy and handing a stack of cards and coming back the next day and saying, did your application work or not? Let's actually move this massive computing engine a little closer to the application. And that was called the mini-computer era. And in the mini-computer era, which really happened in the 1970s, companies like DEC were born, Digital Equipment Corporation. Some of you might be young enough that you've never heard of this company, but it actually did exist. Data General, it actually did exist. There's a great book about that. And finally, a great thing happened. We all owe our prosperity, our knowledge, and our current era to this event. which was the 1971 invention of the Intel 4004 computer. And the fact that we're actually in an Intel building having this conversation is quite appropriate, because that was the tipping point that really changed the computing eras forever. It made computing become much closer, become personal. The age of personal computers was the 80s and the 90s, and now we moved that massive computer closer and closer to the actual application. We moved it to the individual using the device. And in the process, lots of new applications came about. Thomas Watson of IBM once was asked, do you think personal computers are very useful? And he said, I don't think there will be more than 1,000 of them. Well, we now know there is a heck of a lot more than 1,000 of them. In fact, most people have 2 or 3 personal computers nowadays. And in this process, new companies were born that we had never heard of before. Of course, we know of them now. People like Microsoft are the products of this age. But even Microsoft, the almighty Microsoft, was actually demolished, disintegrated almost, during the mobile computing era. Because before the mobile computing era, 97% of the connected devices on this planet were actually running Windows. Today, less than 40% run Windows, and that number keeps coming down, which is what keeps the Microsoft board awake every day. It's not a Microsoft mistake, it's the fact that computing eras transition, and with them bring in new innovators and new companies. Cisco, before I move on to the next stage, Cisco is a very great example that as an innovator, I want you to pay attention to and understand. I grew up in Cisco myself. I spent 10 years there. Cisco took the microprocessor, not the 4004, the follow-on microprocessors, but it took the microprocessor and did something really interesting with it. It used it to translate protocols. It used it to translate the Apple protocol to the IBM protocol, and the customers loved it because it was a cheap way to get all of their equipment working together, and they were willing to pay anything for Cisco to do this. They used a microprocessor to do this. So our lesson as entrepreneurs, as innovators, is understand the new computing era and understand how you can use the new computing era to generate new innovation. Cisco, of course, is a massive, massive success because of what they did. Then came the desktop internet era in the 90s and the 2000s. In that era, new companies were born that, once again, we had never heard of before. Google was the king, is the king of search. Facebook is the king of mostly trivial information, connecting trivial things to each other. Sorry, that was my dig at Facebook, because my son spent way too much time on Facebook. Amazon reinvented retail. And of course, you all know Tencent. Of course, in each of these eras, I'm not mentioning every winner, because that would not make it possible to have the space, but I'm giving you some representative examples. The mobile computing era had its own winners. Of course, Apple. It goes without saying that Apple is a winner of the mobile computing era, because they invented it basically after prior failed attempts by companies to create the mobile computing era. But there is another company that's really interesting, a company called WhatsApp. How many people here use the WhatsApp message or a similar messaging platform to WhatsApp? Not as many as I thought. People ask me if Facebook paid too much for WhatsApp at $18 billion. I say that's the wrong question, because really, these phone devices are actually social devices. If you think about it, this is a social network. This allows me to call anybody I want to. This allows me to text anybody I want to. This allows me to share photos with anybody I want to. This allows me to have a social graph. And where is the social graph on this device? It's on the device. It's the address book on the device. I have about 2,000 people on my address book. You might have 200. That doesn't matter. Those are the people you want to reach. Those are the people you want to connect. So Facebook had a problem, because Facebook, the vast majority of the value of the Facebook is actually in the social graph. And where is the social graph? The social graph is in the cloud, is in the centralized servers of Facebook. What era was Facebook born in? Facebook was born in the era of desktop and centralized internet. It was not born in the mobile internet. So it needed to react to the mobile internet. WhatsApp is just one example of the social messaging, social platform, social fabric that's getting generated. So it's not a question of what price you pay. It had to be done if you're Facebook. But that's not even the point. The point is that companies like WhatsApp, Line, Kakao, Instagram, so on and so forth, Snapchat, are creating a new social fabric using the mobile computing era. And they are the winners of the mobile computing era when it comes to social fabric. Airbnb is a great example as well. I really love Airbnb. I'm using it now to travel to Europe with the family. Before Airbnb, think about it. Really think about how many different platforms existed that listed rental solutions for you. Tens, hundreds. But the difference was nobody had thought about it in the mobile computing era. Nobody had thought about how do you actually go and take pictures of your property in 2 minutes and post those pictures and advertise your property. A small difference in human experience, a very small difference in human experience, but that small difference made Airbnb into a massive success that it is today, as opposed to those hundreds of other sites that existed that actually allowed you to list your property. And of course, my colleague at Qualcomm will tell you that Qualcomm absolutely nailed the computing platform, both in terms of digital baseband and in terms of application processors for the mobile computing era. What I'm proposing to you today is that the context computing era either has already begun or will soon begin. 2016, maybe? It's in that time range, and it will bring with it massive opportunities for innovation, for creation of value, and for startups. This is the golden age to be part of the startups that create the context computing era. Now, of course, in a setting like this, I would be remiss not to mention the device opportunity as well. The device opportunity is also massive. Each of these computing eras transitioned by approximately at least 10x in terms of the number of devices that are sold. If you think about mainframes, the total number of mainframes sold could be measured in thousands over the course of their lifetimes. The number of mini-computers were measured in tens of thousands. The number of mobile internet devices will be measured in tens of billions. And the number of intelligent sensors, beacons, wearable devices, and other categories yet to be invented for the context computing era will be measured in trillions. That's right, I said trillions. So understand the numbers are absolutely massive. So now let's quickly review what's required. What are the 3 key elements that are required to make context computing what it is and to make it successful? First are beacons. Beacons are actually not physical devices. They don't have to be physical devices, although there are lots of beacons, iBeacons in particular, that are physical devices. A company called Estimo, the Polish company, is making beacons. Qualcomm, which has spun off their division, makes physical devices called beacons. However, beacons are really just low energy Bluetooth devices that are emitting some numbers that are basically identifiers. These devices can be your iPhone, can be your car, can be your bike, can be your watch, can be your glasses, can be a tree, for all we know, in the future. All these devices do is they emit identifiers saying, I'm here, and find out what I'm about. They're part of the browsing experience that I talked about. There is an app that runs on some sort of a smart device. The app could be running on a smartphone, the app could be running on an iPad, could be running in your car, could be running in your watch. And this app actually notices the presence of the beacon and says, I'm noticing that there are numbers being emitted at me. Those numbers are in the case of Apple's iBeacon, UUID, which is a device ID, a major and a minor, and then asks the cloud, because this smart device, this app is connected to the cloud, asks the cloud, what do these numbers mean? And the cloud then says, these numbers have the following meaning. It's the representation of Walmart, it's Walmart in Mountain View, and it's the shoe department in Walmart, or any number of other meanings to that context. It then provides a much larger context information that allows you to connect and interact with the physical surroundings that you're in. If you're in a museum, it can give you the context of the actual pieces of art that you're looking at. If you're in a train station, it can tell you that this is the train that goes from destination A to destination B, and it leaves in 20 minutes, and these are the stops. It can give you the context for that interaction for which you're looking. As a result of this set of devices and set of interactions, a large number of applications will be developed. Understand, I'm talking about a large number. Tens, no. Hundreds, no. Thousands, tens of thousands. Whether it's the Macy's app, which has already been developed, the Walmart app, which has already been developed for Walmart, the Hyatt app, which is yet to be developed, or 1,000 other apps. They don't have to be retail apps. They could be business apps. They could be any number of applications of human experiences. However, context computing, just like all the other computing eras, has its own issues, its own early steps problems, and there are many things that are still have to be worked out. But this actually spells opportunity again for startups, for people like us, people like you, that are looking for a chance to out-innovate the large established companies. One of these problems is that today context is app-specific. Each app that I have on my iPhone, each app that you have on your smartphone, has a context about you. But that context is jailed inside that app. It can't go anywhere. It can't communicate to the other apps. It can't say anything about you to all the other environments, to the physical world as you walk through the physical world. The example that I talked about with you looking for a gift for Peter but not remembering it and walking through Macy's would work if you have the Macy's app. But if you don't like the price at Macy's, or you don't like the particular watch that you saw at Macy's, and you walk into a store just down the street, the experience stops because the context is actually only app specific. My next point is also that these are walled garden experiences. That you go through the Macy's, you experience Macy's. You go through Walmart, you experience Walmart. These are walled garden experiences. They're not universal experiences. The users have apprehension about being followed. Lots of people are saying that these beacons will actually follow them. The truth is, first of all, these beacons don't have legs, so they don't follow you. And secondly, they don't actually receive any information. They only send information. So it's really the app that's following you, and you, the user, have control over the app. The iBeacon standard is new, and of course it's the Apple version of the world. So we have the Apple versus Google at least, if not Apple versus Google versus Facebook. And we all know Apple is a device company, a fantastic device company, and Google is a fantastic data company. And how this battle evolves is not obvious. But there's nothing more clear to me that context computing will arrive nevertheless, even if Apple and Google come up with different standards. And then the value of digital identity in time and space is still unknown. To the app developers, to the retailers, to the guys who run the train station, to the guys who run the Major League Baseball, although they're more ahead of anybody else. So lots of things, lots of problems still have to be solved for context computing to become the success that mobile computing era has become. As one of the examples of this, think about a world in which you have to download one app per place, per thing, per context. You're not going to do that. That just does not scale. Therefore, a whole new ecosystem, a whole new way of thinking about context computing has to be developed. And finally, this is how we at Archimedes Labs think about the opportunity in front of us and how we evaluate startups and evaluate companies. Obviously, on the left-hand corner of this golden triangle of innovation is devices, beacons, wearables, sensors, and as I mentioned, it'll be measured in trillions. On the right-hand side of this golden opportunity is people who will develop new apps, people who will develop new experiences, the VARs, the value-added resellers, that actually go implement these applications for their end customers. And at the top of this sits the data opportunity, the opportunity to actually use the data to change experiences. And finally, as a glue layer, there is a set of platform technology that provides the opportunity to connect all of these things together. We at Archimedes Labs, for example, have a very exciting new company that's in stealth mode, so I can't talk much about it, called Context Plane. You see the logo at the bottom of the screen. Context Plane is a company that's focused on providing a platform for the Internet of Things. We call this the Internet of Things and Humans, the ability of humans to interact with the Internet of Things. To date, what we have is the intranet of things. It's a bunch of small experiments. We need to develop the Internet of Things. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you, and I hope this was useful.